And this is the Voice of the Kids radio show, voiceofthekids.org. I'm Gary Scranton. I am on the board of Voice of the Kids, but we have the standing guest, and he's really our interviewer, our main interviewer, Dr. Surajit Khanna. Our special guest today is Dr. Marvin Thompson. Dr. Thompson is a highly respected educator. He has over 25 years K-12 and higher education. How old are you, Marvin? You look a lot younger than that. 25 years. As your chief academic officer at a charter school in New Orleans, you were featured in Oprah Winfrey's Blackboard Wars. And you know what? I tried to see that. It's not available in the US, but there are clips on YouTube. So I encourage everybody to go to YouTube and see Blackboard Wars. Basically, you'll see Dr. T being placed in a difficult school with the job of fixing it. It's pretty amazing. It's a nationally televised documentary bringing to light the challenges facing urban schools in America. And that is key today, what's going on. In 2013, he was a speaker at the Steve Harvey Mentoring Camp for Boys. We are so excited. I'm going to introduce Dr. Marvin Thompson. Dr. T, say hello.
Glad to be here.
Dr. Khan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you, Brother Willie. I'm glad that we are back in the show again. Is Brother Willie there here?
Yep.
I am. Yes, I am.
I missed you. I missed you.
We missed you.
Yes. We missed you too. Absolutely.
Okay. With the praise of the God, this is a wonderful opportunity for all the viewers. And I'm glad that I'm back again to the audience. I love audience. I love that we are doing a great job, especially with the supervision of our brother Willie. He is the man of God, so we are going to move forward with this. As you guys know, that we always focused on children and we always focused on their safety. So I'm glad to be here again and discuss about this particular topic, children and their safety. As we all know that children are our future of everything. And in order to have a better future and secure future of our country or about the world, we need to provide our children with the correct foundation through education and giving them the right tool. And we have wonderful guests with us today is Donna, who is also a firm believer of children and their safety. And I can't thank enough to Dr. Marvin Thomas, that which we call Dr. T, that he is also a proponent of children and the safety. Because anybody who is in the field of education, they have to love the children and they have to understand that these children are the future of our country or our world. Today, the most states and school districts consider closing public schools. Why? Because of the coronavirus pandemic. Educators are debating moving instruction from classroom to the family's living room via the internet. But setting up online school is not easy. And according to many researchers, and we'll be citing some of them, you'll see, moving from the actual classroom to the virtual classroom can hurt the student performance. And it is hurting because, like, for instance, you know what? It would be a much pleasant feeling if I would have shaked my hand with Dr. T. But no, we have to shake through virtual. Virtual doesn't give that feeling. Dr. T, I'm sure you can reciprocate this with me, that when you are teaching the students, the interaction between the teacher and students are so important that which you cannot feel it virtually. And this is the struggle which the students are having. And this is where the researchers are telling that it hurts the performance of the student. School district leaders who are weighing the possibility of closing the campuses to prevent the spread of the coronavirus should really understand the pitfalls of online instruction for the kids in kindergarten to the 12th grade. And there are some research which I said that has been done between the University of California and Irving School of Education. And one of the things which I liked about it, that's what I wanted to quote here, a growing number of studies show a negative impact on students' achievement when K to 12 students move to online format compared to their usual in-school experience. And the other challenges, lower income families might not even have access to computers, video conferencing, and online learning platforms. So there are many, we can list many challenges, not only technical, but economic challenges. I am very thrilled that we have one of the experts in the industry, especially in the children's education industry, Dr. T, with us. And like Gary said, he has 25 years or more experience. Everybody calls him to fix. Nobody calls anybody when they are not in a problem. So everybody calls somebody when you are in a problem so that they can fix it. And our major problem today is happening about this education system. Not only pandemic, but before that also, we really had a great damage to our education system. And I'm glad to know that Dr. T is one of the person who has been chartered to fix things. So thank you very much, Gary, and thank you, Donna, for bringing Dr. T here. So Dr. T, the microphone is yours. I would like you to talk a little bit about yourself.
Well, let me clarify first, Dr. Khanna. You started with the first question. I'll be 57 next month.
Oh.
So, yeah, and I shortened the 25 years. I just figured I'd have a cutoff, right? And, a little bit about me. I'll just start at the beginning, and I'm going to jump real quickly. I think it became important to me. I'm a product of a military family, something Donna and I have in common. And early on, from the age of 7, I experienced different settings across the country. And I began to ask myself questions from the age of 8 to 16 as to why I could move from Virginia to Washington State or California or Texas or North Carolina and have different experiences in school when we're all after the same thing. I can move during the school year and move from one side of the country to the other. And I might be talking about space, California, and we're talking about rocks in North Carolina. So I started questioning the whole purpose of education. And I think about the age of 12 or 13, I became probably the student that no teacher wanted to have because I asked questions about everything. Policies, why is this way? Principals avoided me. They would give me special assignments just to keep me close. You know how they keep your enemies close, closer than your friends? Well, that's what educators did with me. They kept me close. All the way through college, I actually, my first work-study job, I went to Randolph-Macon College in Virginia. And my first work-study job, I was a football player. Was in the weight room, which I thought was perfect. I get my workouts in and I get paid to do it. That didn't last long because the president of the college, Dr. Liddell Payne, sent for me and reassigned me to work for him. I didn't know what that meant, but I learned a lot about the higher ed structure, being in meetings and just having luncheons with him and being a fly on the wall. So that's my background in terms of my interests and how I came to be an educator. Dr. Khanna, the comment you made about me being asked to fix things, my mom always said that I only get fixer-uppers. My very first job as a principal was a fixer-upper. My very first job as administrator was in a school that had a lot of violence and drug problems. So from my very first day in education, where I was employed as an educator, up until my last, it's always been they had a vision or a problem that can turn into a vision that turns into a system. And I think that's where a lot of what's happening today, right now, the vision has dissipated over the last 40 years. And we don't have congruent conversations about what education is supposed to do. And in my 28 years in this business, what I've watched is a lot of conversations about what should be, but no one's articulating a vision. And it's one of the barriers that I have. There's an implied vision in some reform movements, but implications only lead to confusion, and there's nothing concrete. And I think, Dr. Khanna, I was talking with someone this morning about a reset for education. And to your point about where we are with COVID, I'd hate to be a superintendent today. I really would. It's got to be one of the toughest jobs in education. I'd hate to be a teacher on the front line wanting to do the right thing and take care of their kids, because you build these relationships. You do not come in this profession unless you carry the mantra, much like your foundation, where you're a voice for the kids and you're an advocate for them. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to filter through some of the risk and be sure that as much as you're providing a caring service, you do it in a caring way. And we haven't found a resolution. So it does right now. It's probably the first time in my career where I've seen education really rely on all of us, all of our voices to come together. And I think this is different than any others, because this is the one industry I've found so far, day to day, week in, week out. And I call it an industry because that's what it's turned into. I think New Orleans kind of exemplifies that. But this is the first time that we've all had to come to an agreement about what we were trying to do for children. I can't remember in my lifetime. I went through busing. My brother and I, when we lived in Norfolk, I got to stay in my neighborhood school, which was predominantly black, and he was bused to the white schools in the suburbs. That was a response. That was a reform effort. But this is the first time I think we have the opportunity as a nation to hear the voices from those who brought these children into the world, not the politicians, those who care for them every day, not just the teachers. But I don't know if there's been a time in America where we are going to have an opportunity where parents have a stronger voice in what their children learn than we do right now. And I think if we don't capture that, and we move forward as we have in the past, we will be setting ourselves up for even bigger issues.
Absolutely. I think, Marvin, you have a good point that we are on the forefront of redesigning the future of education as we currently know it, and rebuilding schools for all of the children, not only in the United States, but on a global scale, that we can be the forefront of change. And we also need to have more accountability. And I agree with what you said. Parents need to take more empowerment, and we need to give it to them. We need to give it to them. Homeschooling, it seems like a very difficult thing for many parents, but they have to do it now. And there are millions of homeschool families around the country and around the world. Actually, I'm an educator, but I also had the gift and blessing of homeschooling my children at the same time. So I did a little bit of school and a little bit of homeschooling, and we can coordinate it and work it together. So I really do appreciate, your comments in that area. Well, how do you feel right now? And I'm from Philadelphia. I was also bused like you, and I grew up in the 1970s in Philadelphia. A bus from African-American community into a white, predominantly Jewish community. And we had, at some points, riots that we had to undergo, very similar to what you see now with the Black Lives Matter, but people throwing things at each other, and the fire department with hoses out, and the police wearing, shields, etc. And it made it very difficult for us to either go to school or come home from school in the afternoons if the riots persisted after school. But currently we have students who are not only going through something similar in the area of school bullying or school violence. I'm imagining just for a moment that with the COVID-19 situation and schooling online, some of the bullying may have at least slightly become suppressed, hopefully. Maybe they found other avenues for school violence, but hopefully it's not the way it was, especially in the school where you were in Louisiana. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, kids are resilient. They adapt quicker than we do. We have our, you and I, just in the little time that we've been in this conversation, I've referenced the 70s, and Donna as well did you. And I imagine as we continue, we'll have a wealth of experiences to draw on, and we make projections. The beauty of being young is you don't know what you don't know. So you're always looking for answers. You're always looking for opportunities, especially as you get older. You're looking for opportunities to take control of what's happening around you. So with social media platforms emerging literally, 3 or 4 a month, there are always new mechanisms. I don't know about you guys, but I got addicted to TikTok. It took literally, I didn't know about it until a month ago. And I have to wean myself off of it.
Well, Dr. T, we want to see you dance. We want to see your TikTok dance. Come on, you can show it to us right now.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, we have a surprise caller on the line. Coach T, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Say hello, Coach T. To Dr.
How you doing, Dr. T?
I'm doing fine, Coach T.
A little surprise for you.
By the way, by the way, I have to interject. He is absolutely addicted to TikTok because he sends me everything he gets.
Give me your handle. I want to follow him.
It's nice to call your mother. Say hello to her.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's your foundation going?
Oh, it's going great. I was just listening to you. What's interesting about what you just said? You said kids don't know what they don't know. The irony in that is, as we get older, what are we always told? Know what you don't know.
We were.
When you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we were. Our parents always, if we had questions, and my brother, while he's on, I don't think our dad ever gave us an answer to a single question. It was frustrating at first. But he actually forced us to find our own answers. What he would do was steer us in the type of questions we need to be looking for. And that, I think, sticks with both of us. I like to think I pass that on to my children, but the phone calls and emails say otherwise.
Amazing, Dr. T. I think, Coach T, welcome to the phone call today. It was a surprise for me also. I'm sure your brother was surprised by hearing you here, and it is amazing that how the kids and Dr. T just was telling when you joined about there are many challenges going on within the mindset of a kid, okay, and yes, sometimes they like to get all of it in a silver plate, but that's not what it is. And like you both were just sharing this. Well, I imagine your father was a great man coming from the military background, and definitely today what you are, credit goes to him. If he would have answered all the questions in a silver plate, then you and me wouldn't be talking here, and you won't be an educator, and you won't be a coach, Coach T, for the children, because we, especially the children, need to try to get the answer, especially when we all were growing up. I know we all are a bunch of teenagers here on the phone. When we grew up, we didn't have Google. Okay, we just, and today's kids, hey son, can you go and get, you ask them a question, they will go Google and go get the answer. You know what? They think that's what life is. They think that's I think, Dr. T, you brought it up about resetting the school system. Okay? People think all you have to go is hit the reset button in the computer and everything gets reset. No. Okay? That's not how, I'm sure when you went to New Orleans with the challenge, that's not how you resetted it. It's not a button press. Okay? So today, the kids also, you ask the kid anything. And in this show, I'm again thankful to Gary and also Donna. Some of the conversations we had in the past weeks, we started talking about Constitution. We started talking about interdisciplinary or interdependency. All these things kids don't know. Kids knows about ask any children today. Well, I would not say 100%, but at least I would say 60 to 70%. They don't even know what is declaration of our Constitution or the declaration of our independence. Or they know July 4th is the Independence Day. What do? Oh, we go party. Okay? That's all they know.
Right.
Because they don't want to get the answer what happened. Today, all this racism you are having, all the Black Lives Matters is happening, all these things are happening. There is a lack of understanding with the kids. And this topic is unbelievable that we are bringing this up. Today, if pandemic would not have happened, let's talk a little bit about the situation of the pandemic. If the pandemic would not have happened, then we would not be talking about Black Lives Matters. We would not be talking about what Dr. King did for long in the past. Okay? Because everybody in United States, let's talk about the United States. Let's not talk about the world yet. In the United States, all of us, we thought we are equal. There is no difference. There's no discrimination. There is no race. There's no nothing. We all say because Dr. King was successful, he did everything, and that's it. Mm-hmm. No. Look what happened. So God gives everything for a reason. And I said this I think I did tell this to Donna before, that this is 2020. And the year 2020, what do we mean by 2020? We all are above half of the lifetime we did. So we don't have, everybody does not have 2020 vision. Okay? So this is 2020 vision. There is a reason why God sent this pandemic, not for suffering, but for us to wake up. For us to come, what you are doing, Dr. T, that you are resetting this children's life by resetting the going to the school system and all these things. This is exactly what God is trying to do. He is trying to reset the button so that we all can wake up. And today everybody is fighting about school system. Everybody is fighting about how are we going to do the online thing, blah, 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 all these things. But nobody is thinking about the children's safety. Nobody is thinking about what impact the children is going to have. So I don't know. When I have this type of topic, I get really excited, Dr. T, and I'm so happy that you are here today. And I want to get the message from you so that the whole world can listen. So
well, I will try to do no harm. I'll do. You brought up an excellent point earlier, and I think it's one as I was listening when the pandemic started at schools, and I was monitoring schools' responses and what they were thinking about. And I always start this when I do workshops, particularly with principals. Every system, every school has a system. The question is whether or not it does what you want it to do. And if it does what you want it to do, does it benefit children? So there's multiple layers to getting principals to think beyond what they think they know, and teachers as well. You brought up a point about access, right? There was a lot of assumptions made over started making plans for schools. And it wasn't until about 3 weeks into these plans that people realized that not everyone has internet. Not everyone has access to a computer. And even if you have access to those things, are there enough of those resources? And again, we're making an assumption. We're talking about a parent with what, maybe one, maybe two children? What about the parent with 3 or more, obviously at varying levels, with one computer? How do you manage that, right? You don't. I can see right now, I guarantee you I'd be willingly giving up my instructional time on the computer for my other 2 brothers and playing my parents as the benevolent son looking out for them, right? That's just one less problem they have to. A lot of those opportunities missed. So we have some restrictions on how we resolve that. The first step to me isn't giving them everything, because we can't, not immediately. Some school districts have. I know in Los Angeles, I was working with a principal in Los Angeles School District just a couple of weeks ago. They have a one-to-one program. It's an initiative they started over a decade ago. There's a colleague of mine that I worked with a few years ago prior to coming to New Orleans in North Carolina, very small rural community, but he had the foresight to understand the significance of technology, and they went to a one-to-one program there. That's cost prohibitive for many school districts to be able to do. I know for a fact that the superintendent who did that in North Carolina had to make some sacrifices and get real support and connection and understanding from the community to give up something to get that. Here we are 10 years later, and they're benefiting from that decision made 10 years ago. But not every district has those equitable opportunities. So even if we have districts that wanted to do it, do they have the resources? Did they have the community support? And I think, Dr. Khanna, going back to what I think your passion comes from in the context of this reset, if we're intelligent enough to capture these gaps, these are the things that we begin to ask for and demand in the Great Reset. It's not enough to say it's a reset, but let's identify the barriers and the gaps. And I'm really, after so many years in this profession, I hear the term gaps, right? We have an achievement gap. We have an equity gap. We have an economic gap. Well, let's not close them. Let's eliminate them. So this is the opportunity to reapply resources. God forbid what we've given up in terms of financial resources and the gross, the GDP is obviously going to be a lot less than it was probably even dating back to 2008. I think it may even surpass that the longer this goes on. We're seeing companies and industries move by the wayside. We're going to see more single family incomes. It's not just the school, it's how does it affect families' lives? And I think that's why their voice needs to be involved in this. This reset, whatever we want to call it, the new normal, but it is a resetting of America. During my lifetime as a young boy, I went from single parent, single income households. And by the 80s, everyone was practically dual income. And here we are now, not by choice, but by circumstance. We may find more single income homes than we've seen in the past. What will that do? How will that impact the role of parenting? How will that impact the structure of schools? And Dr. Khanna, one of my biggest issues, and I've worked in all different types of communities, rural, urban, suburban, you name it. But I can tell you the access to resources is probably the biggest gap that I find. We have these high expectations for all these varying communities, but inherently, our funding formulas, our mechanisms that we provide, technology, even textbooks, even quality teachers, is not in fact equitable. So as our society has moved and advanced and all the technologies that we have schools where children can't access a computer every single day to this day. And yet people are surprised that they don't have that skill set. So we kid ourselves from our past, from this point going backward. We have created an illusion of equity and that every child has had the opportunity. But our very structure minimizes opportunities for these kids, particularly in our challenged communities and our underserved communities. They literally do not have equal access nor equal opportunity. We don't see, I'm currently, the last year and a half, I've been working at a community college here in Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. And the big focus in this state is workforce development, which aligns with President Trump's initiative. It aligns with the governor's initiative that isn't new here in Tennessee. But Tennessee was one of the first states to offer free community college education to its citizens. So there was a huge increase in enrollment. And you have to ask yourself, what impact did that have on K-12 in terms of motivating them? There are young people who couldn't even see themselves in a community college because it was cost prohibitive. And all of a sudden they're able to go in the 9th grade, in the 8th grade, in the 6th grade. I can at least go to the community college. And the data here in Tennessee already shows that. We've seen other states do likewise. We have examples of where systems can incentivize and motivate and provide those equitable resources for our citizens. And I think we have an opportunity in a public system, much like the community college is here in Tennessee and around the country. We need to be able to replicate what works for all. And I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel.
No, you're right, Dr. T. And I'm glad to hear about different systems motivating the children, because hearing the children or understanding the need of the children is so important that, you know, most of the time the parents don't realize that, or the teachers even don't realize that. So fixing a system is not just an outsider's job. Means you, me, Donna, you know, your brother Gary, we all are outsider to that particular child. Okay, and people always think, oh, let's hire the consultant or expert to reset the button. Well, that's not how it works. It works within the system has to be within, you know. So let's come back a little bit about, I want to kind of understand a little bit from you, because you have been an educator and a superintendent. What do you think, what kind of challenges the schools are facing today when they have to choose between, you know, pandemic situation and also the what do you call, the education in the classroom? What do you think?
Wow. I can tell you, and I'm going to answer your question through the lens of a teacher, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road, and to your question. Over the last, I'm going to say decade at least, the biggest complaint from teachers is too many initiatives. Keep it simple. Reform has been, it seems to be on a cycle, 4 to 6 year cycle. There's something new in education. So nothing ever really gets the chance to take hold. So, you know, you all, I don't, raise your hand if you remember undergoing the new math. I went through the new math twice in school, and it's not a surprise that our parents today can't help their children with their homework. Our parents couldn't help us. And of course, what did we think? Wow, I thought my mom was smart. I thought my dad was smart. Well, they were. They were smart in the context of what they were taught in. And in the last 10 years, what did we see? We saw a brand new curriculum come in, the Common Core, which changed everything. It was a gap between generational learning. It truly was. So you have teachers learning who were taught in much the same fashion that many of us were, being handed a curriculum to transfer knowledge as they're learning it themselves. So new initiatives is one. And I think we have to pare down, what do you want from teachers? Number one. Number two, make the curriculum align with where our country's headed. One of the biggest complaints I hear, and I've observed it, why am I learning that? Some of the best educational systems that produce the highest and strongest workforces, you can look at Germany. They have a system, and we don't track in the United States. I'm not advocating for that. But I do think we have an opportunity to provide choices earlier on that align with our nation's productivity. We have gaps in employment in workforce areas, not because people aren't interested. We haven't created a base for them to get those skills. If we go back, everyone on this, you don't have to date yourselves, but probably every one of us either had a vocational class or there was vocational school present when we were there. Well, when we removed those in 1996 through 98, I was assistant principal in a district that had a very large centralized vocational center and program. From auto body to plumbing to electrical, you name it, carpentry, they had it all. We used our students to do some of the repair work in our schools. So I don't know if that longer exists, but I do know in those industries that I just referenced, there's a shortage of quality workforce. Talk to any superintendent today and he'll tell you the hardest position to fill isn't the classroom teacher alone. It's the HVAC repairman. It's the plumber. That's where that was my biggest. When I was superintendent, I was negotiating contracts for HVAC repairmen. I never anticipated that. To find that I'm bidding against my neighbor superintendent and the other three on the same four people blew my mind. So those people own the market, and that's one area of, I would even call it reform of resetting. I think not just saying we need teachers' voices in, but what hasn't worked? What can we stop doing? What do we have evidence that no longer, that we know hasn't produced anything? And I think we also have to say, what is it that education is to do? When education was created, I always tell this story, and I find the teachers are even amazed. I know they got this lesson. Donna will remember it as an educator. The history of education was community-based. Not everyone got it. So the doctors, the lawyers, the educators, the merchants, they sent their children. Or if you found a young person who had an aptitude for those things, they received the education. The rest of the children worked the fields and they played. They were going to be consumers. And as our country grew, we realized we needed to replace each other.
Let's bring up to the audience, what is your advice, or what is your 2-sentence on this impact today that is happening because of quarantine or because of this COVID-19? They're debating between going back to school or not going back to school, whether it's a hybrid system or gasoline system. So give us a little bit on that.
Well, if you're a parent today, don't worry about the long term. What's affecting you is where you are right now. So I always just tell parents right now, assume you're going to be doing this for the next 6 months. That's where you are. That's the biggest help you can be to your child, because they're going to respond to this the way that you are. And basically begin to set school up at home. Set a routine, number one. We know that. It's the most important thing you can do. But there's also another important factor, remember. Don't set it up as school. You are at home. But you need to set a workspace that transitions to that learning space. And make sure the schedule does not have to mirror the school day. Instruction for your child is typically no more than 3.5, 4 hours a day when you break down the actual courses themselves. So if you extend it beyond that, you're really stretching not only your own capacity, but you don't have the natural supports that a school inherently provides. That classroom setting brings a natural norm to it without being spoken. You don't have that in your home. Your norms are totally different. So build that school within the norms of your family. Those are the things that you can control. So that allows you to be the teacher in your home. Because again, if it lasts 6 months or beyond, you want to be able to have established something that you know you're driving. The other thing, when you're talking about multiple children, you know, you may find that some of them will want to learn together. And we do that in classrooms. That's not a bad thing. You will also find that you may have a child. You are still probably learning about your children more than you knew before. But you may have a child who does not learn well with their siblings, that prefers to be isolated. Give them that flexibility to do that. I think the key word is flexibility. The third thing that I would suggest to parents, and this goes back to another capacity issue. Again, we make a lot of assumptions that everyone who's teaching at home has the same skill set.
No.
They have the same positive experiences in school. And I can tell you from experience, a lot of the contention between home and school is sometimes because the parents themselves did not have good experiences. And they bring a lot of those assumptions there. So I would tell parents not to take the pressure to know everything. We know this about research. The value a parent places on learning really is one of the strongest indicators of how well your child will do in school. You do not have to know math. You don't have to know calculus. You don't have to know how to conjugate verbs perfectly. You just have to convey to your child that it's important that they do so and help them seek answers. The third thing is, when you get frustrated, stop, just stop. There's nothing that important at that moment that requires you to push through something you yourself or your child is frustrated with. If you sense frustration in them, stop. It's something we tell teachers to do. Don't push a child, and I'll give you a metaphor that I use with teachers and principals. If you ask someone to think harder, describe what that looks like. I call it constipation. Just get that in your head, right? That is a constipated look. Think harder. I cannot think any harder, but you can ask me to think differently, right? So thinking harder really doesn't do anything. You're actually steering people to be frustrated. But I can ask you to think differently. And sometimes it's nothing more to say, you know what? Let's think differently about this tomorrow. And I think that's where you have to give yourself room and permission to evaluate. We expect good teachers to do that. So that's a little tip that we ask teachers to do in their classrooms. So it's one that I think parents, because you know your child better than our teacher in many cases, and probably, again, learning some things about their learning styles and their learning frustrations that may help. And for non-English speaking parents, if you have students that are there, that's a difficult one in some cases. If you have access to the computer, there's a lot of programs that you can find online where you can get some of those lessons. YouTube has a variety of them. But without that access, if you are a solid English speaker, ask them to review the lesson with you, and you can reinforce what they learned in real time. There's nothing better than seeing your own parent do with you what you're doing. If you're not a strong English speaker, ask them to teach you what they learned that. Let them turn the tables a little bit. And it's still another way to reinforce it. And the last recommendation I would make is, if you're like any of us, you're working from home and your child's in another room in another setting and they're doing their lesson, to review their day's lessons in real time, just to be sure, number one, you were paying attention and something was going on, or two, reinforce the lesson so they, for that brief moment, get to teach you something. And it doesn't have to be an inquisition. How was the lesson today? What did you guys focus on? Was it helpful? Any area you struggle in? What might you think you need? This is a journey that we both do together. And my last comment is, don't try to be the classroom teacher, right? You're still mom, you're still dad, but you're dad or mom who's literally helping guide your child's learning. And I think, you know, a reminder to all parents, you were their very first teacher. They learned their first words from you. They learned a lot of behaviors that they mirror and mimic from you. You didn't give that up. You're just reclaiming some of that space.
I like that. Thank you very much, Dr. T. I think this message which you said, not to push, and also within this situation which we are facing through, we don't know, like you said again, 6 months, 1 year, or beyond 6 months, it could be even 3 months. Okay, we don't know the situation, because when we started in February, we did not know it was going to be August. And look, we are in August 12th. Right. And we are all talking about, you know, Labor Day, and school is going to start opening. So definitely we don't know, and this may not be the permanent situation. So I think I really like your advice, which the parents should know, that this is a temporary, and let's take advantage of that. Let's bring the kids closer to us, because like you said, the parents are their first teacher, okay? And it is the responsibility, I think Donna, you brought it up, called accountability, okay? The parents needs to start thinking about the accountability, because I have seen, you know, even though I am not an educator by profession, but as a lawyer, I always, you know, it was a default habit. I love teaching. I love giving seminars. I love giving, you know, talks. You know, even before all this Facebook, Google, and all these things came up, you know, I love teaching in a blackboard. Okay, so you know, the very first thing I would tell to the listener, that please take the accountability, because if you don't take the accountability, then you cannot be responsible of your action. And don't just say, oh, you know, Dr. T told me to do this, that's why I'm doing it. No, that's not how it works. Dr. T and us, we are advising based on the experience we have. That may not be the right answer for your particular kid. So you are the best judges. So you take the responsibility in educating your child and with your situation. And this is what, this is, and again, I'm sorry, I'm bringing this up. I don't want to be political here, but this is where the entire government system fails, because the government is trying to impose things which the parents should be doing. Okay, let them choose what is best for their child. Okay, because they know their household situation, financial situation, and with pandemic, I think we are talking about the research. The research was the which I spoke about, the University of California University and Irvine College School. That was done in February.
Right.
Okay. Today's August. Lot of people, I know this, and you brought it up, Dr. T, that the income, the family household income, has been dramatically decreased. Okay. Doesn't matter what the stimulus money did, nothing. Okay. You know, but they can't buy they can't even, you know, keep their cell phone, connection. They can't have a wireless. They can't have this. They can't have this.
Yeah.
And you are very nice to bring up 2-3 kids. I have friends, those who have 9 kids, 13 kids, 14 kids. Okay. So how are they going to survive with this type of thing? You know, so Dr. T, I think the message which you are giving is great, and I would like to bring another subject here, or same thing with the school system. So, what do you think special needs students can do?
That's a very tough one, because when we say special needs, there's a wide variety, right? I referenced ELL, and that really is just a level of obtaining English, acquiring English learning skills. So you've got typically 3 to 4 levels. But when you're talking special needs children, you're talking a range of just, ADD, ADHD, all the way to autism. And that autism spectrum is very, very wide. So for that population, you have individualized education plans. Many school districts are providing where they can, and I don't know what the restrictions are, what the limitations. I don't want to pinpoint it, but I do know that there are districts who are doing home instruction for an allocated amount of time to focus on those learning gaps. Where it relates to parents, and I can tell you, if there's a parent of a special needs child listening, they know what their child's disability is. They know how their child learns. As a matter of fact, they may be more in tune with their child's learning style than any other parent because they've been dealing with it for so long. The one recommendation I would make with them is to remind themselves as they try to help their child to provide the same accommodations that they ask for at school. That means more time to do it. That's a self-check because it's your child. You go, you should know this. You want to do this. I know you can. That's not what they need. That's going to be the biggest challenge for a lot of our special needs parents who are providing that service. I've worked with a family in Florida probably for a good year and a half. They moved a lot of their instruction at home, and I've literally watched them evolve. Very stressful when it started. They'd probably call me 2 or 3 times a week, frustrated. But then they realized how much control they had. And they used, as I referenced earlier, their knowledge of their own child to go, wait a minute, I'm projecting onto my child what should be happening during school hours in a school setting, and I'm in my house. So let's do a reset here. Let's try it this way. And they let their child dictate, here's what we want to have happen. What's the best way that you think you can get that done? And that child made the list. Those children probably, if any, if you have the opportunity for parents with special needs, have a discussion with your child about what learning is going to look like at home. Get their input. Hold them accountable to the things that they said they wanted. But also understand that will change, especially if you have children on the autism spectrum. You and I both know, parents are listening, change is difficult for them. And my heart goes out to those families who've been home for this time because I can only imagine how they're used to that routine. They're used to that day-to-day cycle. And we know that they experience that transition anxiety when school starts up again, and school hasn't. So the longer that they're out, that population, probably more than any, needs to have more structure than any other population we discussed so far.